The feel. I've started taking walks around the neighborhood as exercise. To be honest, I'll stop and talk to the few neighbors I like, but the other 75% of them are jerks. As I was explaining my septic issues to my friend Brian, I discovered that he had worked in that field for 11 years. It isn't your cylinder. Your filter is clogged. I'll bet you a 6-pack of beer. It's true that septic tanks include filters. I had no idea. Brian gave me instructions and then talked to me for 20 minutes about the things he had discovered in septic systems. The most notable was the task when he removed the cover to inspect the filter and discovered about 30 protection clogged inside. He claimed that after making a small joke about whether or not he should throw them in the trash going forward, he immediately saw how pale the man was. It seems that in their 18 years of marriage, they had never utilized a protection. How did it turn out? Shit, I have no idea. When I finished cleaning the filter, he sent me a check. One thing, though, was that he was packing all the rubbers into a tiny bucket and wearing cooking gloves when I left. And so we depart. Well, as I looked down, wasn't that just wonderful? Beth screamed as she entered the living room, telling us that the toilet had exploded. It appeared as though it had. I cleaned the bathroom, then walked outside to check the clean-out plug, knowing full well that Beth wouldn't do it. I had to go take a shower because there was a gush as soon as I opened it. As I wondered how much making an emergency call would cost on a Saturday afternoon, Beth strode past me with her suitcase in hand. Until you fix this, I'm going to stay with my sister. When you're done, give me a call. I stripped right inside the back door and went back inside. I'm going to take a shower, screw this. The backyard is easily traversed by the water. As the water swept over me, I pondered about my life. Married for 18 years, with a 17-year-old daughter, she works as a summer camp counselor while saving every penny for college. I was thinking about Beth and how far apart we were becoming. It appears that my level of inexperience and confusion has increased since our initial marriage. History was connecting. Even at 41, she maintained her beautiful looks. Perhaps it was a female issue. It was during my visit to the doctor last month when I learned about early onset menopause. That might have been the case. In any case, her demeanor was beginning to affect Amy, and I couldn't stand seeing the pain on her face when her mother lost it. After she arrived home, we were going to discuss. I honestly didn't care if she didn't like it because I'd reached my limit. I had had enough of being surrounded by toxins. Clean, I made the decision to head to the bar, get one of those delicious burgers, and perhaps have a few of beers. Additionally, I would make sure to go there if I had to. As I was leaving, I noticed Gus picking up his evening newspaper. The light bulb came on. Gus once ran a septic tank maintenance company. With his remaining connections, perhaps he could win someone over. I paused, and we conversed for a short while before I finally asked my inquiry. He chuckled. "Wanna save $250? Yes, without a doubt. How? The tank isn't full, I'll wager. It appears that your filter is clogged. It only needs to be cleaned out. I'll come over tomorrow after church and show you how to fix it, I promise." I asked him and his wife to the pub since I was so thrilled. For the following 2 hours, they conversed about the peculiar objects they had extracted from septic tanks. It appears that when there was nothing going on, his wife Mabel, a dispatcher where he worked, would occasionally ride along. After paying to have the entire tank purified in search of her misplaced engagement ring, one woman discovered it behind a plant on her counter. Another man apparently felt he was going to be busted and followed them to the dump station, where he put cocaine worth $80,000 down the toilet. In fact, the cocaine was located, and he received a lengthy prison sentence. They arrived there at 1:30 p.m. the following afternoon. After finding the cover, we removed it. The filter was there, obvious as day. I was to man the hose while Gus pulled it. By the time it was halfway up, he was beaming. His spouse chuckled while glancing down. "Chad, I've figured out what's wrong. You might want to put these in the trash going forward." I noticed what he was grasping. Protection had blocked my filter. Later I found out it was 23. I wondered, naively, how a bunch of protection had gotten into my septic system. Then it dawned on me how. It must have been something in my face, for Gus and Mabel stopped talking for a moment. "Chad, there must be a reason behind this. Have you had any visitors recently? Alternatively, perhaps Amy invited some pals over when you weren't around." "Really, Mabel? Do you really believe I would host visitors for long enough for them to make this many mistakes? Or the fact that my daughter, 17, is now throwing orgies?" "No, this can only have one interpretation. Before they left, they talked me down for an additional 45 minutes. After they had departed, I waited, grabbed some heavy rubber gardening gloves, and carefully gathered up the rubbers. I then placed them in a triple-layered baggie, a plastic container, and the small freezer on top of my shop fridge. I walked inside the house after that to reflect. Oh dear woman. Many things came together. We had finished. No haggling, no excuses. Completed. There was only one thing that kept me from shooting. I was curious as to who it was. I decided not to give Beth a call. Give her a little time to remain where she was. I needed to make plans. I stayed at my shop the remainder of the day. Amy needed to be picked up the following day, and I had requested a day off work to do it. I hadn't seen her in 7 weeks at this point. She hugged me fiercely and told me about some of her exploits dealing with 11-year-old females who mistakenly believed they were 20. That young, really? I was growing old, man. She didn't inquire about her mother until we were almost home. I explained the septic tank to her. So it's fixed. Yes, it's fixed. Does Mom know? No, I did try phoning this morning and last night. Recall that when I picked you up, she was meant to be with me. We had organized family activities for the entire day. After taking out her phone, Amy made a call to her aunt. Is Mom there? No honey, your mom is at work. Well then, how come everyone said she was off when I called? This is the situation. Mom needs to give me a call back in the next 20 minutes, from her work phone, not her personal one. If not, my dad will take me over to have a look. And this tiny bird is going to sing to her father if she shoved her own daughter aside for some monkey business. I am knowledgeable. 20 minutes. She called 30 minutes later, gasping for air. Hello, my love. I'm very happy you're back. Yeah, I could tell when you showed up to meet the bus. I had something come up. I'll just place a wager. Mom, goodbye. She cried on the phone to me about how impolite she was. Now, observe who instructed her. Tomorrow is when the tank will be pumped. If you're interested, Amy will be visiting my parents' house tonight. I won't. I stared at Amy after hanging up. She let out a sigh. That's when you learned. How do you intend to proceed? Before you accuse me of lying to you, let me clarify that I learned the truth during summer camp. 3 doors down from us, Jenny, my best friend, has a cousin named Amy who lives with her boyfriend, Jack. I was informed by Jenny after he told Amy what he had witnessed. All right, directly from the source then. It has to be the gospel. You don't do sarcasm well, at least not with your kid. Tonight, I was going to tell. How will we proceed? You're going to graduate from high school and have an amazing senior year. It's likely that you'll grow up in a home with just one parent. Given your age, the judge will most likely allow you to choose your cohabitant. If it's your mom's decision, I'll respect it. Just promise me you won't exclude me from your life. How do you feel? The most of the time, I believe you to be a fairly naive guy. Naturally, I'll choose you. I could never control her the way you do. I'm sure she couldn't identify me in a lineup because we haven't spent much time together, not even in the same home. However, I must immediately eliminate the taste of camp food from my lips. A nice burger or pizza would make me kill for it. Thus, use my stomach to gain access to your only child's heart. I went her to the neighborhood pizza place, where I watched her gobble up 3/4 of a big pie that was loaded with additional cheese for meat lovers. She asked me what I was going to do about her mother as she sat back and burped. Despite her strong, mature demeanor, I could still see the child in her eyes. It was going to be difficult for us. I grasped her hand. Amy, allow me to share with you my priorities. I have to be quite confident that I'm handling this correctly first. In the upcoming months, I have to figure out how to lessen the effect that the divorce will have on you. You are the most important person in my life right now. I want to see you happy and safe as much as possible. A lot is dependent on your mother's response. I swear to you that I will try my hardest to avoid putting you in the middle. However, if my suspicions are correct, Pumpkin, my union with your mother is over. Though it was strange to be speaking with your daughter, I have been asking her opinion on important family choices ever since she was 14. She was obviously unable to engage in some decisions, but I made an effort to include her in as much as possible. Mom would have preferred a sporty tiny car, but when we needed a car when she was 15, she agreed with me and we went for the SUV. In the end, I drove it anyhow, taking Amy and her friends on road trips, and the next year, Beth received her small car. I was the one who taught her to think things through before acting and to weigh all the options before offering advice. She was a natural leader and confessor to her circle of friends as a result of how well it served her. You must find a way to maintain the house, at least until I graduate. If it's going to benefit you financially, then give it to her. I take it I'm still go to state. Yes, the money will be there. I ran to give her comfort. Honey, your 529 degrees Celsius has enough money in it to last you the first 3 years. I'll have plenty of time to find the money to cover your final year, even if your mother doesn't contribute. I sincerely swear to you. After we came home, I let her unpack and have some alone time. I was interested in her mother for just 2 reasons by this point. How quickly we may file for divorce, and who the guy is she duping. In the end, it was quite easy. No amount of high-tech equipment available online can match the performance of a traditional deer cam. Okay, perhaps I didn't say what I meant to. The deer cameras I checked out from my brother were cutting edge. When they were turned on, they recorded for 30 seconds before entering a still frame. It could be set to zoom in upon activation and provided you with a timestamp. They even had audio, but most of the time they were so removed from their topic that they were barely perceptible. After some thought, I managed to hide them, and with my brother's assistance, I constructed 2 birdhouses that each hid a camera. I placed one on a tree near the driveway, which would light up as a car approached, and the other on a pole that faced the front door. It wouldn't have mattered if I hadn't witnessed them acting badly. I informed her that the purpose of leaving birdhouses up until the end of summer is to allow them to weather, giving the impression that they are an organic part of the yard, in response to her smarmy comment. I was obviously lying a whole lot. How in the world could I know how a bird chose a nest? She simply dismissed them with a shrug. This is how it transpired. She was employed by a company that offered flexible work schedules, so she would take 2 or 3 hours off for lunch each week, either staying late or arriving early to do her work. It's likely that her lover was employed there as well. 30 minutes ahead of him, she arrived at the house, changed into fresh clothes, and grabbed a meal. He would arrive, they would make out for about half an hour, then get dressed and head out, her returning to work while he passed the time till his return was scheduled. Occasionally, he would visit me at home and sip on 1 or 2 of my homemade beers that a buddy had given me. It surprises me that I missed it. Perhaps Amy was correct, and perhaps I truly had no idea. Adolescent as hell, but upon discovering the truth, I relocated all but 1 or 2 to the store refrigerator. The vintage bottles had rubber washers and ceramic lids, and they held around 24 ounces of liquid. I would take the ones I had left in the home, fill them up with new pee, and drink approximately a quarter of them. I would then give them a good shake and replace them. When I would return home and discover an empty on the counter, I would smile broadly. I could have poisoned him, but really, did I really care? I would remove the rubbers from the septic tank and remove the cover around once a week. At 2 sessions a day on average, these little bees were very active. It seemed sense that she wasn't enthusiastic about me because she spent most of her time playing around. I had to carefully prepare for 3 weeks before everything was set up and operational. Amy wouldn't be present when it was all over, in my opinion. I didn't think it was right to witness a parent humiliated like that. I considered inviting the neighbors, but then I changed my mind. Rather, I positioned 2 video cameras and began recording with them. Brian owned an outdated boombox that was cassette-based. I tucked it behind my dresser, where it remained almost invisible. My goal was to time it such that the boombox would turn off right when they were empty. Before it reached the sounds I had recorded, the cassette had been running with an empty tape. I heard the sucker when I tested it. Whack! The sound of wood splitting and a shotgun going off. I went to Habitat and bought an old door, which I then positioned and fired in the woods. You could hear me screaming as soon as the shot fired. I let loose a lot of pent-up anger, very little of which was acting. Again, the shotgun fired off. You cheating woman. I'm gonna wreck him. Then I'm gonna stick this shotgun up your cheating ex and pull the trigger until it's empty. Here I come. Even after seeing the scene 100 times, I'm sure chuckling. They scurried to their cars as they shot out the front door. He was wearing only his coat, tie in his hands, his jeans, and a white shirt. Later, I discovered his boxers on the bedroom floor. I moved around the house and made my way over to him. With a girl's cry, he leaped into his automobile. It was then that he saw the gift I had given him. I divided the rubbers equally between 2 5-gallon buckets and dipped around 4 gallons of septic fluid in each bucket. I had poured it on top of the driver's seat right before the rifle went off inside. It's only punishment for the moron who parked his car unlocked in an unfamiliar area. Beth screamed out. She was attempting to pull her tan skirt up at the same moment. She was wearing a white thong. Apparently I'd gotten to them before they got busy, or he hadn't bothered to take it off. She never wore a thong in my opinion. It was simple to pour the rubbers into her car. Even at home, she would not leave her car unlocked. However, I had a key. I started to walk closer to her and saw that she was fumbling with her keys before discovering it was unlocked. Opening the door, she dove in and attempted to turbocharge. It struck her after around 15 seconds. The white thong had faded, and her skirt remained up. I just stood there laughing hysterically and taking pictures. I believe she realized what I had done. She was trying to get out of the car while yelling at me. My door banged and I nearly caught her leg. Don't even think about getting your crap-covered ass out. Better yet, go ahead. I still got the cover off the septic tank. I could drop you in and close the cover. You could probably last an hour or 2 dog paddling, but eventually you'd tire out and just slip under. Now that I know all I have to do is change the filters, it might be 20 more years before I have to have it pumped. By then all that would be left would be a few of the larger bones, and I doubt he'd suck them up in his hose. The more I think about it, the more it appeals to me. I took out my keys and opened the door. She slammed her car into reverse and drove away. She smashed down one neighbor's mailbox and removed the other. She was leaving our dead end at a frightening rate of speed. Hey, slow down. This is a neighborhood, not a residential area, I cried, realizing she couldn't hear me. This is a 20-mile-per-hour zone. All right, before it was made public how much of a perverted jerk Bill Cosby was in real life and how much of a druggie Richard had become, I was a huge admirer of both Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby. My dad had an old comedy album, which contained the statement. I can't remember who stated that specifically. After Amy returned home from school, I told her what I'd done, omitting a few details. She was initially taken aback by her elderly man's actions before becoming impressed. And people wonder who I got my personality from. That's just precious. You're not mad about the way I treated your mother. No, you didn't physically hurt her, and she kind of deserved it. Bet she remembers this day for a long, long time. Now come on, and help me pack her stuff up. And Benit, you've already got your revenge. Thus, we carefully packed her jewelry, cosmetics, and clothes. Amy chopped everything in half with scissors after discovering the seductive undergarments. Apparently, an apple doesn't fall very far from a tree. She informed me Mom won't answer the phone as she finished the last load. She's at Aunt Gwen's, I just talked to her. I guess she owes Mom for covering for her little adventures. Too bad Uncle Jack found out anyway. I'll be back in just a bit. You got her on the ropes right now, Dad. Might want to think about changing locks tomorrow. She didn't return for 3 hours. Mom's a wreck. She kept saying over and over it wasn't supposed to be like this. I think she's having some serious buyer's remorse over her choices. If you can believe it, she wants to come home. I convinced her to give you a few days to calm down. Aunt Gwen followed me out, asking if I thought you could get past this and take her back. I just grinned and got in my car. She was served to me at work because I was still in excruciating pain. She needed to be retrieved by Gwen. I was given brief imprisonment after striking first. I vowed to show everyone my tape, but she fought the divorce and persuaded the court to mandate therapy. Despite my strong opposition, my attorney advised me to comply. 8 meetings. I was surprised to find that I kind of liked some of it. The woman we sketched was well built, about our age, and reasonably appealing. She didn't have a ring, I saw. She inquired about our goals for the sessions at the very beginning. Beth was the first to speak. I put on a straight face and said, I want my husband and daughter back. I want to go home and rebuild our marriage. Next, it was my time. I'd tell you this is a waste of your time, Miss Turner, but it wouldn't, because whatever the outcome you still get paid. Don't worry, I'll do my very best to remain calm. I'll actually participate to the best of my ability. But there is absolutely no way I would ever want to remain married to Beth. She's blown it, the damage is too deep. What I expect to get out of these sessions is your opinion in writing that this marriage is beyond salvation. So let's begin, shall we? I'm sorry you feel this way, Chad. I think. Why are you sorry, Ms. Turner? We're supposed to be honest here. If that's the way I feel, and I'm comfortable with my decision, why would that lead to sorrow? I believe I caught her off guard. Well, what I mean is I'm here to help you find your way, to talk about your difficulties and see if we resolve them. Ms. Turner, really, I'm not lost. I don't need help finding my way. My path is clear, and I only see one set of footprints on it. I already have my resolution. The way I see it, you're here to try and get me to accept an alternative I find distinctly unappealing and impossible. I'm here to tell you you're screwing around. But hey, I'm paying for these sessions. I should at least get some entertainment value out of them. By all means, proceed. She was affected by me. Chad, Mr. Jones, you know I have to report to the judge. If you're uncooperative or fail to participate, it could work against you. I put my tiny recorder on the table and said, am I being uncooperative? I think I'm being very proactive. I've been doing almost all the talking here. And Ms. Turner, I respond badly to threats, veiled or otherwise. One of the reasons I'm taping these sessions. Mr. Jones, you may not tape these sessions. Why not? You are, aren't you? As the person footing the bills, I have a right to ensure I get my money's worth. I refuse to let you do that. Now, I stood up and grabbed my recorder. We're done, Ms. Turner. I'll be officially asking for another therapist tomorrow, if I can get to the judge. This tape will be instrumental in his decision, I'm sure. You have a pleasant evening. Beth and her both had their jaws hanging open when I departed. The judge was persuaded by my attorney to choose a different individual, an elderly lady who was indifferent to my recording the sessions. Everything proceeded really easily. There was a lot of Beth pleading for another opportunity and me turning her down. The one argumentative moment occurred when she attempted to persuade me and the counselor that it was only a brief affair, that she had gotten into too much trouble, that she intended to quit it, and so on. I threw myself at her feet. I'm not sure how timelines work in a cheater's world. How long does a fling go, as opposed to a full-blown, continuing affair? Is a fling less destructive to a marriage? I know for a fact you had slept together 41 times over at least 6 or 7 weeks. 41 times. This wasn't a fling. Neither of you intended to stop before you got caught. 41 times. That took a lot of planning, a lot of coordination to pull off. This wasn't a fling, Beth. It was a thoughtfully planned course of action. You guys were pretty clever. It might have gone on years if you hadn't clogged the septic line. I couldn't help but chuckle when I heard, but you were caught. Pretty dramatically, I thought. When Beth went to her sister's house, her sister wouldn't let her through the door until she had undressed and thrown away her belongings. She smelled even after 5 showers. Her carpet was cleaned by detailers, but the driver's seat needed to be replaced. Her partner was served approximately a week after Beth, however I'm not sure what happened to him. Though I never once showed anyone the footage I had taken, rumors began to circulate. When Brain found out, he gave me the moniker Rubber. After having a few too many drinks at a nearby bar, I believe her sister told much of the story with abandon a few weeks later. By the 4th week, the sessions had become somewhat monotonous, and we were merely going through the motions. Beth sobbing, me being calm. In the 6th session, the counselor made the decision, and 4 months later, Beth and I proudly had brand new divorce decrees, at least in my case. I considered the settlement to be rather reasonable. Rather than receiving child support, Beth was required to pay half of the house's mortgage and continue making contributions to Amy's college fund. With just 10 payments remaining, it was essentially a wash. We sold the house and divided the proceeds as soon as Amy received her diploma. Even in the downturn, we received a fair price. I bought the house 5 doors down and took my half. There was an additional bedroom, a larger property, and the neighborhood's sole pool in the backyard. I paid roughly 2/3 of its true value for it because it was a distress sale. It was similar to a vehicle loan. All I had to fund was $20,000. In 4 years, I paid it off. Amy did really well in college. During breaks, she began taking her 2 roommates home with her. I used to obtain them summer employment, and during their free time, they would spend as much time as possible lounging by the pool. I had a lot of male and female college-age visitors in the end. I turned into a little bit of a legend. Nowadays, most people call me Rubber, even at work. I oversaw a section at a business that produced brake components for luxury vehicles, primarily Mercedes and BMW, but also Land Rover and Bentley. I earned what many shift supervisors at other facilities did not. I performed well at work, and my managers were pleased with me. It wasn't until Amy entered her 3rd year of college that I gave relationships any thought. Hadn't really desired one. Yeah, over the years, I had a couple of friends with benefits, but nothing significant. Colette then arrived to work. She was appointed chief of a new department. The managers used to go out to a nearby pub once a month to unwind and shoot the breeze, but we also chatted about work-related topics. I asked her out after 3 months, and she said yes. We proceeded cautiously since there was a spark there. It took us nearly 4 months to begin having intimate relationships. I told her the whole tale of how I came by the moniker Rubber because I believed that if she was going to be in my life, she ought to be aware of my past. She seemed a little taken aback, then struggled to contain a smile. She laughed soon after. She then related her story to me. Married to someone that resembles my ex, just like me. She wouldn't, so he began gathering playmates who would. Colette told me that as soon as she learned, she went to Goodwill and picked up an old blender, some rubber gloves, scissors, and a full blender of ivy and poison oak leaves. After pureeing the leaves and straining them through a strainer, she obtained around 1 ounce of juice. Then she replaced the half-empty KY tube in his hiding spot after carefully inserting a hypodermic needle into it. She received a call from the hospital a week later. Her husband appeared to have experienced a severe allergic reaction, so they had to hurry him there. She chuckled. When I got there, he was on his back, the gown tented up because he was extremely sensitive to touch. I swear, he was so swollen up he looked like a star. I was talking to the doctor, and he was trying to determine the cause of the reaction. I looked dead at my husband. Well, I said to the doctor, maybe it was the poison ivy juice I put in his KY. Think that might be it, honey. The doctor gave me the oddest look, and one of the nurses dropped her tablet. He has a habit of sleeping every woman he can get a hold of. Please don't come home, or I'll permanently destroy your crap the next time. I heard the doctor instruct a nurse to check on the women in 312 as I was leaving. That floor was where it was, so I went past. She was lying flat on her stomach. I swear it looked like a space alien since it was so red and bloated. Because of her posture, she was unable to see who entered, so she begged if I might give her something stronger to help with the pain. I believed I had broken my hand when I slapped her so hard. I put poison ivy juice in the lube. Next time it might be acid. Think about that, the next time you decide to screw another woman's husband. Whore. She screamed, and I leaned over to make sure she could hear me. That won't take the pain away, but it'll give you something else to focus on. I'm the wife of the man you were having a good time. I worried about getting arrested for a few days, but I suppose letting the secret out was worse than their punishment, because I never heard a word. She seemed anxious, so I just stared at her with my mouth hanging wide before suddenly smiling. I think we're in love. She smiled back, saying, you better. After a few more months, we made the decision to do so. Colette had a son, 14, and a daughter, 16. Her son Bill escorted her down the aisle, and Amy loved her and was understanding when she couldn't bring her roommates the next summer. We needed the beds. It was several months before we were a cohesive family, and when the time came, Amy took Joy on a tour of her former university, and 2 years later Bill was awarded a tennis scholarship. A few years later, the children are here for our 15th wedding anniversary. Bill brought his spouse and adopted daughter. Amy got married and has 2 kids. Joy has 3. The grandkids were splashing in the pool while the kids watched them and prepared dinner. We sat there, honored guests, and I could see the little ornament on the fence from where I was sitting. Colette was a pretty good painter. She did accents on our mailbox, birdhouses, and fences. The one I was staring at was so small you couldn't really see it, an inflated rubber ball with a vine of poison ivy curling around it. A reminder, she says. It's never been necessary. Who the hell cares what happened to Beth? My comment, it was one of the light revenge story I have done recently. What do you think? Comment down below if you liked it, and I will see you in another one.